Hey, Dr. Rick here with another Relate Well moment. And I used to call these things Rick's Remarks, R-E-M-A-R-K-S. I kind of play my name, Rick Marks. But with the need to expand the Relate Well movement, helping Americans and others relate well in all aspects of their life, I'm just starting to call these Relate Well moments. So these Relate Well moments are a series of teaching videos, short but hopefully impactful, and most importantly to me, inspirational for you. You can learn more about us at Dr. Rick Marks, M-A-R-K-S, Dr. is drrickmarks.com. If you're a part of the faith community, you'll see the things that we offer there in terms of our coaching, in terms of our intensives for relationships or individual intensives, as well as services for the faith community. If you're interested in the Relate Well curriculum, which is for anybody, single, married, therapists, clinical, licensed clinical therapists, we have a partnership with National Marriage Seminars. Where you can get 9 CEUs for learning the Relate Well process and how to use that in therapy with couples. If you're learning to, if you're single or dating or married, and you want to learn the fundamentals for healthy relationships, that's what Relate Well is. It's not a marriage curriculum, as much as it really is a relationship curriculum to teach anybody who wants to have healthy, mature relationships. You can go to relatewell.us, that's relatewell.us, and find the path that you want. If you're a business organization, we have leadership programs as well, where we teach emotionally healthy leadership based on the 4 principles of a healthy, mature life. So, we are going to talk about today are 4 guiding principles. If you choose to live your life by these 4 guiding principles, you will be mature in all your interactions. You will develop yourself into a healthy, mature, loving, caring individual. And most importantly, as far as it concerns you, you will bring peace to all of your relationships. It is the essence of what the Relate Well curriculum is really about. Relate Well isn't really academic. I mean, it has academic behind it, but for the most part, Relate Well was my journey. What I learned to do in order to become a healthy, mature individual. Now, some people would argue I'm immature, but the person who would know for sure is my wife. And she says, I'm a very different man at 36 years of marriage, age 58, than I was many, many years ago, but I've intentionally tried to become a healthy, mature adult all along. And she says I am. She says that I'm a very mature man, and my kids have actually suggested that as well. So I figured if they see it in me, it must be true. So what we're going to talk about today are the 4 principles, and these are actually the 4 principles which the Relate Well curriculum was built on, or built around. And the Relate Well program is built around these 5 words. I call them in the curriculum the protective wall for an us. You know, every relationship is an us to it. Us wins, you both win. Us loses, you both lose. But I'm talking about the 4 protective walls of an us. Now, what are those 4 protective principles that protect your relationship, but also ensure that you become a healthy, mature person? You see, the way that you as an individual protect your relationships around you is you become mature. If you're listening to me out there and you're in the faith community, a pastor or a church leader, or even just someone in the Christian church who's wanting to go, what do I really disciple myself to be? Quite a few months ago, I was teaching a leadership training at a group of pastors, and one of them asked me, hey Rick, what do you think the purpose of discipleship is? And I asked them, and I got answers of, teaching the Bible, those kind of things. And I said to them, I'm not saying I'm right, though I believe I'm right. I believe all the things you said are nice, but they're non-essentials in the end. The real purpose of discipleship is to mature people in love. I mean, 1 Corinthians 13 at the very end says, and thereby faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Because you can have faith without love, and you can have hope without love. But faith with love and hope with love is a very powerful way to live life. But the love that the Bible is asking us to live out requires emotional maturity. Sadly, our culture is very immature today, and because we're very immature, There's books out there. Ben Sass's book, The Vanishing American Adult, as well as the book by Diana West, The Death of the Grown-Up. Those are two very good books that really kind of highlight that we're an adolescent nation. I also believe that in the evangelical church in particular, we're very adolescent in the way we deal with conflict. You know, the real purpose of the real person that you are doesn't show up in the good times, it shows up in the bad times. That's when you know a person is really at the emotional level. So what are these 4 protective walls? What are these 4 words that emerged for me over the years as I was trying to better my life? Well, let's take a look at them. Number 1 is goodwill. Number 2 is respect. Number 3 is humility. And number 4 is empathy. Goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy. Now let's take a minute and just kind of look at the definition of each of these. Goodwill means friendly disposition. It's a benevolence. It's a kindness towards another. It's goodwill is when whatever I do to you, it doesn't seek to harm you, it doesn't seek to hurt you, it doesn't seek to belittle you, it doesn't seek to put you down. Whenever you do something that seeks to harm, hurt, ignore, negate, that's ill will. That's ill will. And if you want to sow ill will, that's okay. Feel free. You have the freedom to do that. But remember, you will reap what you sow. The law of attraction. Angry people attract anger. All right? People who live in discord attract discord, right? Because whatever you are, you're going to attract to you. If you are sowing ill will, don't expect your relationships to be healthy. You see, healthy, mature people always make sure, to the best of their ability, not perfectly, but maturely, that in all of their dealings with others, they want to be a person of goodwill. Why? I don't want to be known as ill will. I want to be known as someone who seeks your best, that seeks to honor you and respect you, which leads to the second one, is respect. Respect means esteem for another, to honor, to value another, of honoring their and valuing their worth, to show favor to another. Whenever you dishonor someone, disregard them, it's disrespectful. When someone's talking and you cut them off, that's disrespectful. You see, mature people don't treat people in disrespectful ways. To control someone, to manipulate someone, to force someone, be it through passive aggressive, by guilting or shaming people, that's disrespectful. You're disrespecting those people. When you seek to guilt or shame people, happens in the church from the pulpits. We guilt and shame people to get what we want from them. There's no respect in that. You never saw Jesus go around operating with ill will or disrespecting anyone. Here's what I learned. Whenever I treat people with goodwill and respect, I knew for a fact that I was being loving. Why? Because love never treats people with ill will, and it never is disrespectful to anybody. So one of the ways that I began to measure myself was ask myself, am I treating you with goodwill? Am I treating you with respect? Am I communicating in respect? Respect and goodwill means you need to forgive, you see. There's no goodwill in not forgiving someone, particularly when you hurt people along the way as well, and you are just as much in need of forgiveness. You see, there's ill will to not forgive. It is disrespectful too. The third word is humility. Humility. You know, we see the word humility in the West almost as a negative. We talk about it being positive, but what you don't really realize is to live a life of humility is to live powerfully. Mature adults in conflict, research shows, move to humility. How do we know that? Because in conflict, mature adults actually move to compassion and cooperation in conflict, where immature adults move to defensiveness. They get defensive. Well, immature adults move to defense. That's pride. But mature adults have the ability to move to compassion. They have the ability to move to cooperation. You see, you can't cooperate with compassion, and you can't have compassion without humility. Humility is a powerful way to live. Humility is the quality or condition of being humble, not proud or arrogant. It's a modest opinion of oneself. In other words, mature people, humble people, can tell you what their strengths are, but they'll also tell you what their challenges are. And it's not conceited to say what your strengths are. That's humility. Why? Because they don't go around flaunting it. They don't go around in conceit over it. And the last one is empathy. Empathy comes from a Greek word that means to suffer with. We think about empathy as stepping into another person's shoes and feeling what they feel. I like to think of it, empathy and compassion, they could be used interchangeably, yet there is a difference between the two. But empathy requires the ability to listen. If you're not listening, you're not caring for people. Why? Because love listens. James 1, slow to hear, slow to anger, quick to hear, slow to speak. The focus of that verse is on listening, not talking. And whenever we listen to people, we're sending the message that we care about them. Now, empathy is a vicarious experiencing of another person's feelings, understanding how it is for them. Does that mean I agree with them? Of course, the answer is no. I don't want to say I have to agree with you, but agreement doesn't build relationship. That's another training we did. All right, and you can catch that on another on the other video. Agreement doesn't build relationship. Understanding and caring how things are for another is what builds relationship. So the 4 protectors of relationship and the 4 ways to make sure you become a healthy, mature adult is to live life out of goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy. Now let's take a look deeper into these and think about what are goodwill behaviors and then what are violations of goodwill. So what are goodwill behaviors and what are violations of goodwill? So here we go. Goodwill behaviors are some of these things. Considering the benefit of your actions to another. In other words, it requires a second thought. You don't just act or react. You step back and go, wait a minute. You know, if I do this, it's going to send this message, and I don't want to send that message because that would send the message that I don't care. That's goodwill to do that. It's cultivating positive qualities and emotions. It's increasing another person's value and worth. It's when you reason with other people, not argue with them. There is no goodwill in arguing. You don't engage a fool in their folly, as an old Jewish proverb says. Why? Because when you engage a fool in their folly, you become the fool. You lower yourself to their level. And the scripture never says argue. It talks about reasoning with people. Reasoning means I'm going to approach you as open-minded. I'm going to treat you with respect. I'm going to honor how you think. But we're both going to have a conversation and share our thoughts and reason. Not emotional arguments, but clearly thought out logical arguments. Goodwill is when I'm mistreated, I'm going to respond with kindness, because love is kind and love is patient. And goodwill also is generosity. Generosity, giving to others. And it may not just be in money, it could be in time, it could be in a talent that you have. That's goodwill. Now, what are violations of goodwill? Here we go. When you think only of yourself, when you do harm of any kind to another person, when you lack compassion and empathy, when you attack another person's dignity. All humans inherently have dignity. Why? Because they exist. Just because they exist. And whenever you tear down another person's dignity, there's no goodwill in that, and it's very disrespectful. The Creator never tears down the dignity of anybody. When you disregard another person's thoughts and feelings, there's no goodwill in that. And when you operate in selfishness, it's all about me, those are violations of goodwill. Now let's look at respect. What are respect behaviors? Respect behaviors are when you listen to someone. It's respectful to listen. It's when you treat others with courtesy and politeness, being kind to others. You know, you can say what you will about this actress, but I think she has shown here in recent years the truth of what she says at the end of her show. It's Ellen DeGeneres. At the end of her show, she says, be kind. Be kind. You know, that's right out of scripture, because love is kind. And to the degree that you're kind, you're being loving, and love never disrespects people. Don't interrupt others when they are talking. Respect yourself. You can't have respect for others if you don't have respect for yourself. People who lack self-respect don't tend to respect others. But when you have self-respect, you'll respect others, but you'll also insist within yourself that you be respected. Self-respecting people don't let people treat them with disrespect or ill will. And lastly, apologize. It is respectful to apologize, and there's a lot of goodwill in it. It is respectful to apologize when you're wrong. Now, what are violations of respect? When you're rude, when you disregard others, people's value and worth by tearing down their dignity, when you force your thoughts or impose your thoughts over another person's thoughts, when you're defensive, when you should be listening, and when you talk and you don't listen. All of those are violations of respect. Now, the third one is humility. So what are humility behaviors? Here's some. When you invite feedback and ask for help. When you invite feedback. You know, one thing that is true of mature people is they know their strengths and they know their weaknesses. They know what their shortcomings are. They know what their skills are, what their skills are not. And humble people understand they don't know everything and they don't have to know everything. So what they do, mature people, when they don't know something or they need help, they ask for help. They reach out and use their supports and resources around them. Why? Because humility will do that. Prideful people tend to not do that. Thus, they ask questions. They're secure in their own worth. They're teachable. They're grateful and appreciative. They forgive offenses. They actually forgive others. Why? Because they know they need to be forgiven as well. That's humble. And they know their limitations. They know what they can do and can't do. They respect people's boundaries in a sense as well. What are violations of humility? When you exalt yourself over other people. When you're quick to judge people. And by the way, for those in the faith community, you understand that when you're judging someone, the moment that you're judging them, you put yourself in the place of God in that moment. Only God himself is able to judge. But when you judge another, you're basically saying, I am God judging you. And the Lord will look at you and go, you really think you have the ability to judge? Humility won't do that. Violation of humility is when you live as an insecure person, because insecurity moves you to pride and defensiveness. And so defensiveness and being easily offended is a violation of humility because it shows your insecurities. When you're threatened by another person's success, there's no humility in that. You should be rejoicing with those who have success. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Pray for them and ask God to continue to bless them in their endeavors. And when you start talking, when you talk more than you listen, all of those are violations of humility. Lastly, empathy. Empathy. What are empathy behaviors? When you understand the feelings and thoughts of others, when you're present with others, when you're listening really well, when you ask questions and withhold giving advice. When someone's sharing, you start giving advice, that's something you don't care how it is for them. I've learned this a long time ago, and it's not caring to give people advice when they have not asked for it. I have a saying in my world that I say this way: it is disrespectful to give people input into their life without their permission. You want to give people input into their life, ask permission first. Why? Because it's not caring to give input, and it's disrespectful when they don't want it. We think that if I give you advice, that somehow you're being caring. You're not. You're sending a message, I don't care how it is for them. Most people don't want you to fix something. Most people want us to just listen. This is why the 59, one of the verses exists in Scripture. Mourn with those that mourn, rejoice with those that rejoice. We're to encourage one another and support one another, and we're to comfort one another. Those words are not about giving input. It's just that when people are going through whatever they're going through, they don't necessarily want, but sometimes most people they don't want you to fix it. They just don't want to walk through it alone. Using we more than me and staying positive. All of that is about empathy. So what are violations of empathy? Here we go. When you're negative and critical, when you're uncaring, when you disregard the thoughts and feelings of others, when you're defensive, when you're prejudicial and judgmental towards others, and when you make assumptions without verification. All of these are violations of empathy. So in closing, I'm encouraging you to live by 4 words: goodwill, respect, humility, empathy. It is the core of what we call Relate Well and the Relate Well process. And Relate Well is the curriculum. It's 9 sessions to help you develop the skills in those 4 areas. And the skills for bonding, the skills for communicating with goodwill and listening with respect and problem solving so that us wins, and how to live in humility. It's the fundamentals for how to be those 4 things. Why? Because love has called us to mature. We're to mature in love. Immature people are immature in love. Mature people are mature in love. And healthy relationships, healthy marriage, healthy relationships with anybody require that we become healthy, mature adults. This is Dr. Rick Marks, and this has been a Relate Well moment.